Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you.
I'm Chris
Tune
Carter.
up.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry, that pause was too big. Why the big pause?
I'm going to be a big dog.
I was born with it. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. We've got some folks calling in while the music is a-playing, so let's get right to them. We don't want them to have to wait. Maybe their problem is happening right now, and they're just waiting to fix it so they can take a loved one to the hospital or put out a
Something
fire.
very important.
What if the first call is, I drive a fire truck, and it won't start, and we got a call a minute and a half ago? You know what I mean? Yeah, we got
Start pushing.
So let's get right to
Get a rope first. Be ready.
I picture the emergency 51. Remember that from Emergency?
Emergency,
No? Okay.
One Adam 12. I love both those shows.
Hi, well, let's talk to Chris. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Chris, what can we do for you? Oh, I see what's going on. No, I don't see what's going on.
Did I do it?
We got some buttons over here.
Did I forget?
Little technical assistance
Yep.
needed there.
We need Russ.
He's going to get this all figured out
Russ-
so we can talk to Chris
Russ
about his brake line.
He designed the system, and it makes perfect sense to his brain. Doesn't always to mine.
Because I turn it on every week and you
Yeah,
get rusty.
And Chris leaves another board
Yeah,
and it comes right
exactly.
to this board.
All right, now let's talk to Chris. Are you there, Chris?
You bet. Morning, guys.
Morning. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Thanks for taking my call. I've been a listener for quite some time now, and I got my own repair shop in Chris's Auto Repair and Service in Marshall, Minnesota. And I was in a car accident 20-some years ago, so I'm very adamant about fixing brakes correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I want your opinion as to what this. I went to town and stopped by another shop in town here, and he was fixing a brake line with compression fitting
No.
brake line.
No.
And I personally blew head gasket on him, telling him how wrong he was for doing the brakes that way. And he got very mad at me because I blew head gasket because you just don't do that.
No. It's
Well-
against federal rules.
Well,
DOT
our
rules.
intent here is not to throw another shop under the bus, but I mean, inadvertently, with the way you're asking the question, there's no other way to do it. You just don't do that.
No, there's DOT rules put in place for brake lines on vehicles for safety, and there are no compression fittings, no copper tubing in any of these systems, period, because it will fail. It can't hold up to the thousands of PSI pressure that's in these things. So you have to get a flaring tool, and those things are cheap now. You can get the flaring tool needed to do multiple different types of lines is a couple $100, and it'll last you pretty much forever. We've had ours for 20 years, and it still works flawlessly. And we double flare every one and put a fitting in between, put an actual joint connector in there. It's the only way to do it, and they will never come apart. You could grab the line on both ends and pull them apart with a car on each end, and you'll rip the line apart before you rip that fitting apart.
When also nowadays they've made most of the replacement components so available. With a common vehicle, you can go to your local parts store and you can get a section. You're not having.
Yep.
They'll have a ready-made section for you.
Yep.
And so they've made this easier too to not have to be tempted to do what a lot of people, frankly, had done at home for a lot of years.
And you
Sure.
can get shorter ones or longer ones to fit. And if you did happen to be just a little, you can't be too short, but if you're a little bit too long, sometimes you can reroute properly so you're not going to contact anything sharp or hot or anything like that, and take up some of that slack so you can mount it properly.
Tie a knot in it and give it a good...
Well, like let's say, for instance, your brake line runs along the inside of a frame rail on the driver's side of your
Wait, don't
truck.
pass over that. No.
You can move it.
Don't tie a knot in it.
No tie a knot in
Okay.
it. But if
Everybody
you're-
knew you were joking. It
if
was so
you're-
out there.
Okay.
If your brake line runs 7 feet straight along the side of an inside of a frame rail and it turns out to be 2 inches too long, you could put a 45-degree bend up in the line in the back, run it forward, and then a 45-degree bend down and go forward, and it'll take up some of that slack, but you can still mount it properly, and it's perfectly acceptable. And then you could do it at home. But I've seen so many compression fittings used from people doing it at home. But in a shop, boy, I think it's been a long time since I've seen one in a shop. That's just not right.
Are there things like that shops that have been around for so long that they see success with whatever they're doing,
And they just keep doing
and
it.
they just keep doing it.
Yeah, or the other thing that could happen is, in all fairness, and it's not right, but they could have a technician that they've recently hired that isn't normal, and he's not been told, and that's what he's always done. And all of a sudden, hey, you do this brake job. We got these rusted lines.
Yeah,
to
I can
fix.
do that. I've done those.
I'll
before.
take care of it. Get her done. That kind of stuff happens too. So
Sometimes it's easier just to bring something like that out into the light and see if it goes away on its own. Like, oh, wow, you use compression fittings? Man, I saw one of those come off once. It's not a pretty sight. Boy, that can cost you a lot of money. Oh.
Yeah,
they'll be thinking about it when you leave the shop.
Yeah, and we probably not. They're not doing it to save money or to be cheaper, right? They're doing it because
Probably not.
think it's fine.
Yeah,
And
they
it's-
probably just
It's what
don't.
they do. It's
know.
been quick and easy for them for a while, and just got to probably modify that
I
procedure.
can't hardly get them to work on my ice maker. I wouldn't use them on my car.
Chris, thanks very much for the call. Thanks for bringing that onto the radio station, and we'll Google you and we'll send you a bill for that ad.
It
We'll
was
get
good.
that right in there. Yeah.
Plug right at the beginning.
That's a
there.
good plug.
Yeah.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Florida and talk to Jeff. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Jeff, what can we do for you?
Hi there. I got a '07 Jeep Wrangler. I bought it brand new, so I've had it my entire life. It's got 198,000 miles. Recently, I had a front wheel bearing going out, and I had both front wheel bearings replaced at that time. Also, the gearbox was leaking. I replaced the gearbox. The front brakes needed some attention, so we put on new brake lines, rotors, calipers, pads, and I flushed the brake system. And my son, who drives it to high school every day, is telling me that it drives different. Every time it comes up to a stoplight, if he takes his foot off the brake, in the past, it would roll forward a little bit for him. And it doesn't roll like that anymore. And when he goes into his parking spot at school, he said he used to coast right into it, and now it won't do that. I've taken it out and driven it. I don't feel like my pads are sticking at all. Could this be my early indication that something's happening in the transmission?
Well, if it was fine before and now it's different, I would take the vehicle and drive it across the parking lot at a couple miles an hour, put it in neutral, and then with your foot off the brake, just see if it rolls to a stop. And if you're on a very slight incline, it rolls put it in neutral, see if it'll roll to a stop, and then start rolling backwards the other direction. So it's 100% free. Because if you're on a very slight incline and it just stops and you can feel it, you'll feel it kind of grab like a brake, and that could be indicating you've got a caliper that's hanging up, even though it's new, or a brake hose that's collapsed inside or just failed, even though it's new. Probably not a wheel bearing, but those things could happen.
So I've done that. I've actually, in my garage, it's level. I've put it in neutral with it running and tried to push it. And I can still push it.
Then it's
I've
not
taken
sticking.
it out on a level. Yeah, and that's my feeling. It's not sticking, but it definitely drives different. I mean, I didn't realize how bad my steering was till I got a new gearbox. And I don't know.
Did you put new brake hoses on it, you said?
So the rear has had new brake lines put in 2 years ago. We did the front because they were rusted. So we put in all new brake lines and everything, like all the hardware's new.
Okay, including the rubber hoses, the flex to the knuckle?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I've checked that. And then I've serviced the front and rear differential and the transfer case. I mean, everything looks great.
Well, I'm going to repeat what Russ said. If it worked good and your son didn't, he's obviously in tune with this vehicle, and he knows something is not the same. And it was not the same from the time that you did this work to now. And so he's in tune with something.
Try turning the wheels all the way to one side and trying to turn them by hand and see if something's going on there, because it could be a problem with one of the shafts in the front.
With that many miles on it?
Where the joint is.
A joint or a knuckle problem?
Taking it apart, putting it back together, something happened there, but sometimes the car will roll straight, but it won't roll when it's turned.
Okay.
So turn those wheels and see what's going on. Also, this is totally out there, but I've seen it before. We had somebody, we worked on their truck, and they said, my truck, it almost was identical description of this. They said it's won't roll for something you guys did, and I got in it, and it was in 4-wheel drive. It was an all-wheel drive vehicle, and on the dash, all it had was lock and 4-wheel drive, no low or anything else. But it somehow got put into lock, so now when you pulled to a stop, it felt like it grabbed a little more, and also turning, it was even tighter. But it drove fine because it's an all-wheel drive vehicle. It was made to do that. But that had happened, so that was an instant change. Last thing I expected to find, but sure enough, I was driving it going, is it? Oh, it's in 4-wheel drive. I didn't know how it got there, but.
I do remember that. My brother had a Jeep, and he would lock the wheels during the winter, so it was ready, and it was weirdly different. It wasn't any problem, but it was like I drove it once in summer and once in winter, and I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, they're just a little different.
Totally felt different. Jeff, thanks very much for the call. A couple things for you to try there, and let us know. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Never, ever use your tongue to see if your car battery is good. Seriously, we mean it. This is Under the Hood.
866-594-4150. I just want to say one thing quick. One of the joys of my life, that call reminded me of it. One of the simple pleasures and joys of my life is when I'm driving my car with a manual transmission and I'm coming up to coast to a stop to turn off the engine and then coast into my spot wherever it is safely, whether it's in the garage, it's maybe 1 or 2 miles an hour, or at the grocery store. I pull into the lot and I'm going across to the parking spot that has nothing in front of it. And I turn off the engine and, coast.
Just because you want to.
Yeah.
That's also a joy when you're 16 and you're coming home and it's 1:30 in the morning and you turn off the car at the top of the hill on the block so you can coast half a mile down all the way and pull the driveway.
I don't know what
quietly
you could possibly mean.
And then when you open your door and you get out and you close it quietly, click, and your dad goes, "How you doing?"
Why are you parked? Why did you park on the part that has the hill? No reason. 1 a.m, letting it go. Yeah, it's just one of the things in my life where I'm just like, I'm pretty cool. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Nebraska and talk to Dan. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Dan, what can we do for you?
Well, I just wanted to see if you could help me out. I have a 2017 Chevy pickup, high country, half-ton 4x4 with the 6.2-liter engine in it, and has 53,000 miles. Nice pickup, love it. But I get a little stuttering on the tachometer and a little vibration when I'm driving it, and I thought I'd heard something about that on your show about a year ago about maybe needing transmission fluid changed or an additive put in there or anything like that. Can you help me out with that?
I can help you out. I mean, this is the same truck I had. I had an 18, and I had the exact same engine setup, everything. Mine was not a high country. It was a LTZ.
Is it silver?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, no, that one's white. The white one.
Okay.
White one with the red wheels.
I'm with you now.
And I was having the same thing, and it was weird, and I trying to figure out what it was. Then as I was watching, I could see, oh, geez, every time I get that feeling, my tack jumps just a little bit. So I was paying more attention, and it just, and so I talked to a couple different people, and one of the dealer friends of mine said, oh, yeah, we call that rumble stripping, and they're having a problem. The assembly lube that was used from the factory to assemble the transmission did not mix well with the factory fill fluid they used at the time, and it gave the fluid a composition that didn't work really good for the torque converter, and the whole process inside there. So they have a Bolton that they follow at a dealer, and I know Russ at our shop and most shops that are active have learned about this and can do it at their own shop, because for some of these it was covered under a campaign, and for other ones it's not. Which I can't understand why it wouldn't be. Russ, am I correct on that?
That's correct.
And so, like on my truck, they had to do it twice, and then after that, it was good to go. And I drove it another 50,000 miles and traded it to somebody else that's still driving it, as far as I know.
And some of them, if they go too long that way, you'll flush it and it'll still continue and you'll end up needing a transmission. It'll get worse.
Eventually, it'll ruin the torque converter or something inside the transmission. But you're pretty low mileage yet, and you sound like you take care of this truck and you're concerned and you're not hitting it hard for some reason. I just got a feeling you don't overly drive this truck super hard. Am I okay?
True.
Yeah,
True.
Just,
True. You're
just by the
absolutely
nature of
right.
the way you asked the question, I could sense that. And now somebody else is going to call in and they're going to say, I know Dan, he drives like a wild man. He goes by my house every day at 90 and then slams on the brakes and takes off again. No, but I just had a sense there. But the dealer's got a process they use, and they refill it with a Mobile One fluid. And like I know, Russ, you guys use...
we use a Schaefer's oil in there, and
Yeah.
then there's a couple others that you can use that they make that will be factory equivalent or better to repair that problem.
Let me ask you a question. Is this a problem where Dan wants to get on the internet and look at what to do or what to use? Or no?
No.
He doesn't need to. We just told him.
Okay.
Yeah. This
All right,
is
fair
this
enough.
is a
Okay.
super common issue, and it does cover more vehicles than just this one that have similar makeup in the transmission. But GM had the campaign for a limited number of these, but not every one of them. Colorado's got the problem. Our Colorado truck for our delivery truck has got that issue, and it's already been flushed, and it's become worse. So
Try give a shout to your local dealer and ask them to check your VIN number and see what
he
is
might
available.
be covered because
Yeah.
almost every 17 I've seen was.
Well, and the low miles that he's got too. Just have him check. But
And you called what was this condition? What was
Well,
the
just-
term you used?
I don't know if it was the
a rumble
national term, but the local dealer here said it was rumble stripping.
Yeah, if they click on bulletins for the vehicle or TSBs, technical service bulletins, and then they'll scroll down to where it says transmission and they'll click on it, and there's two bulletins in there, one for this condition and one for an oil leak. That's the only two. We just pulled one up a couple days ago, so I remember that's all that's
Did
in
they
there.
call it rumble stripping in the bulletin?
Yeah, it said it exhibits a problem to running over rumble strips on a road. So that's how they're stating.
Because that's kind of what you. I mean, I know it go. Brr,
Ford had the moosing sound. Remember that one?
Yeah, yeah.
Moose.
Does that help you out there, Dan?
Oh, it helps me out a lot. I appreciate that, and I'll talk to the local dealer where I got it, and we'll get this problem fixed. And I appreciate your info, and it's very nice of you to call me back.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for the call. That is, I feel like we told him he's not crazy, and now he's happy about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's like, yeah, no, that's a.
Well, I just hope he's got that problem because,
Right.
like I said, Russ has had a few that we've talked to and we've done the service on them, and they work good for a while, and then later they're like, oh, the transmission still needs some
Usually it came from this, though. If they would have, say you bought one of these and drove it for a year and it wasn't occurring yet, because we told people, if it's not doing it, we suggest changing it. Well, my fluid looks good. I don't need to change it. And then they came up with this problem, and then they flushed it, and a year later it was out. So once it starts doing it, some damage is being done. There's a fluid problem in there.
You had those Dodge wheels on there. I remember now.
Dodge wheels.
Yeah, they had the two red stripes that looked like the Dodge
help. Why did you think that was Dodge?
because they have the two red stripes on all their performance stuff, right?
Yeah.
On the,
No, there was there were a little red tint to the coating on them. So
wasn't it? I thought it was the one that had the stripes on the
it's
two.
stripes.
Okay, yeah.
two red stripes. But then the black also had a little bit of a red tint to it if you looked at it really close.
You're
Did
taking
you-
it better this time than you did when I first mentioned it.
Oh, I don't have it anymore.
Did
Yeah,
your did your red tint start to turn like a pinkish as it got older?
I don't think. Maybe I didn't keep it long enough.
I've
but-
seen that on a few of those. That's why we chose not to go with those type wheels on ours with the red, because I was afraid I'd seen some come into our shop and they were pink.
Yeah. No, I guess I'd
Eh.
never noticed that much. But
You went. You're at an all blue phase of your life, aren't you?
yeah, I
Yeah.
am. Yeah, I got to tell you something stupid I did. Speaking of the all blue truck, I got a good reminder for our hoodies out there. Don't be me.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. We're going to go to Maryland when we get back. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Don't forget you can watch the Under the Hood Show on our YouTube channel. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Jenna Brown, congratulations from our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. You can find them at uti.edu. They're going to help you become a automotive technician or marine mechanic or a welder or CNC machinist. Everything that's automotive and mechanical, they're deep into it, and they've got great ties going right into the manufacturers of the products and the vehicles, things like that. So they can really get you lined up for a good career in automotive.
I was talking to my wife and daughter over the weekend about sending my daughter there, and my wife pointed out that if I went and did CNC machining and got a CNC machine, I could print all the radio knobs that I wanted. I could make all of
there you go.
I wouldn't have to do anything. I wouldn't have to buy any more things at auction to try and match the radio knobs. I could just make them.
Fix your jukebox parts.
Yeah.
Your bad slide thingy thing.
I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm switching it all. I wonder if I can get back here once a week to do it, because there's not a UTI near us, but they are almost all in nicer places than
warmer
it was
places.
this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Maryland and talk to Elvita. You're on the Under the Hood Show, Elvita. What can we do for you?
Question. I have a 2010 Honda CRV, and there was two different things. But right now I'm having a problem with the car shutting down while I'm driving. And then whenever I pull, get the car off the side of the road, because you lose your power steering and stuff, it'll kick over, and then when I release my hand off the key, it shuts off. And sometimes it'll, the second time it'll start and stay started, and sometimes it takes me 6 and 7 tries. I've taken it to a dealer. They hooked it to their machine to see if they could pull anything up on it. And they called me. I went down there, and they, told me that they didn't know what the problem was. They took it out for a drive, and all it didn't, duplicate what I was saying. So I had doctor's appointments and stuff. They didn't offer me a car or anything. I asked them how much for a rental, and they have to send you somewhere, is what he was telling me, because their cars were out. Then he said he was supposed to get one back later that day or the next day. So I took the truck home, did what I had to do. Then they charged me for the
diagnosis,
to analyze it. Yeah, $150.
Well, let's dig into the problem just a little bit here of what you got going on. I just one more question. How many miles are on this 2010 CRV?
It's 158.
Okay.
Let me see. I got a paper.
And have you owned this CRV since it was new, or did you acquire it used, or
yeah.
what?
Okay.
No, I bought it brand new.
Okay, so you know this vehicle.
So this vehicle shuts off while going down the road, but when you say once you pull over and go to start the vehicle, when you turn the key and you're holding it in that start position, is the engine running until you turn it off, or is it just cranking?
No, it starts up.
So it does start, but then it dies as soon as you let go of the key. It dies.
Yeah.
Okay, we've only seen this a couple times, but on the CRV, they're not known for dying. We just don't have them die going down the road. But we have had a few towed in that wouldn't start. You'd turn the key and they would crank and they would fire up, but as soon as you let go of the key, they quit. And it turned out to be the ignition switch on one, and on the other one, it was the main relay that had failed under the dash. So they've got a fuel injection relay under there. But the one that the ignition switch was bad in, if we turned it to the crank position and then it would start, if we just pushed our thumb in on the key, like we're pushing the key further into the ignition, and held it there as it was back in the run position, it kept running. It was just the contacts had worn inside, and that's something that will not show up on any computer, because the computer thinks someone turned the key off because it just removed power from that wire. So you might try that. The next time it dies, just hold in on the key a little further, push it towards the steering column a little further, turn it to the start position, and then when you let it go back to the run position, just keep holding it in there. If it keeps going, but then you let go of it or pull it out a little bit, if it quits, that ignition switch is bad. And that's something the dealer is not going to find unless they actually see it. They're probably not looking for that. It's rare that we see that on a CRV. They're pretty tough little vehicles as far as that type of thing goes.
What was the other one?
The other one was a main relay. They had a relay on that older style under the dash, and that relay, the contacts would burn in it, and it was the one that when you turn the key on to the run position, it actually turns on and makes contact. It's the main relay for the vehicle. Now, when you have it in the start position, it bypasses that and sends current directly to the computer, the fuel injection, and everything to crank it. That's why it keeps it in the start position.
Alvita, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That is, and that's something that's going to be, I mean, that's kind of the key one. The ignition is a little bit of a shot in the dark. It's super rare, right?
Yeah. We don't.
And it'll
see
never
a lot
show up.
No.
I mean, that would.
And old cars with what they called an igniter or an ignition module on the even older than that on the American cars, the modules would fail and they would run in the crank position, but not in the run position. If we saw a Ford truck come in from the 80s or 90s and it would do this, we'd put a module on it. I mean, we just knew right away it was going to be that. I mean, it was so common that we'd throw one on it, and if it didn't work, then we'd be like, oops, I guess we're going to eat that, and we'd have to find the problem. But most
shops had one laying around that they could use as a test.
It was so
Is it a 2-wire or a 3-wire?
Yeah.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Mark. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Mark, what can we do for you?
I pulled out a couple old vehicles out of my backyard that I purchased a couple of years ago, and the former owner left some vehicles in the back. One's an old F-100 XLT pickup and another Monte Carlo. I think they're both 1970s, and I just wondering, how do you maybe get some people that need parts or something like that, or would like to take on a big project?
Well, we've, been around this our whole life. People with cars that have been sitting around and such.
This is an interesting question because this answer is not the same as it was whenever.
No, I gotta go.
Right?
I gotta go somewhere else first with this, Chris.
And it depends what kind of what you're selling.
Yeah, but I guess the bigger first question that I have, not to be the Debbie Downer on this deal, but do you have a title for him?
No.
That kind of changes a lot of my answers.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if you have, and you clearly, and here's the thing, this is what's frustrating about this. I shouldn't say clearly, but you know that those cars have been there forever. You bought the property, probably you said, and they were there already, correct?
Yes.
So you don't officially know the story.
And what state are you in? That's gonna make a difference.
Northern Minnesota.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they don't make it easy over there to get a title, without doing some extensive research on ownership, lineage, getting signatures.
You're gonna get a lot of exercise with all the hoops.
Yeah, it's Minnesota is not always easy, but okay, let's just put that aside. I had to ask that because it does change my answer. If the Ford was a unique Ford and had a title, you could go right to Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, any of those types of platforms, and you would have a bunch of people that would irritate the heck out of you, but you'd have interest.
Mm-hmm.
Monte Carlo also. I mean, no matter what era of Monte Carlo it is, somebody's going to be interested in it. If you are of that type where you're okay with it, you could still do that and just sell them to somebody else without a title and a bill of sale. But you're not supposed to do that.
You'll see a lot of that on Facebook.
Yes.
No title. And we're like, what?
Yeah. But I would never buy it from you. But there are people that would, and they would take their chances and they would buy it and use it for parts or whatever. But they most likely are never going to get a title for it once it goes even another step past where it was. Some states have the ability to get a bonded title through dealers, and so you could find a dealer that could help you. Some states have the ability for tow companies to help in this situation with an abandonment process, like if it was at an apartment or something like that, where they could tow it and it's abandoned and they have the opportunity to get a title.
Or if you can go back to the people you bought the property from, if they turned out to be their cars, but they may not even have been their cars, it could have been there when they moved in.
I would say if you know I'm jumping all over the place here, but if you know a dealer or know a tow company that is somebody that you're friendly with, they could run the VIN numbers and see on an all-state search to see if
they even are registered.
Who they show to be registered to, if there's a lien against them. Those are the types of things they have to do before they can do the title process, if the state allows them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
My sister runs into this a lot with Vanderbrink Auctions. She's got people that will come and they have these collections of vehicles that have been sitting, and the family gets involved because somebody has passed away and they don't have all the paperwork aligned. And so she gets involved a lot of times, not to help people solve their problems, only if she's going to have a sale for them.
Right, if it's her problem.
Yeah, and on how they can do it within that particular state, so that they can either work with the state to get titles or realize that they're going to be selling them on bill of sale only because there's no trace, there's no trail. And so that is, and states have, I would say in the last 10 years, maybe creep that up to 5 to 3, there's been more states that are making pathways to be able to get a title if the trail's old on collector type cars. But everybody wants to move that year newer. But I suggest they keep it older, because the thing you don't want to have happen is you get that vehicle and all of a sudden you're working on it and you've put time into it, and then somebody comes back into existence and says, hey, my dad left a car on Tom's farm 3 years ago, and I see Tom sold the farm and I want to get my car back now, and I got the title. Guess what? It's their car.
Yep.
Or it could be haunted. You don't want, you got to check that.
Okay.
So,
Mark, I wasn't trying to scare you, but that's a reality. And if you put it out sometimes in the public to sell it, you sometimes find out that somebody will say, hey, I know about that car.
so,
and then they can help you solve the problem.
So I have 2 questions here. Mark can't bring it to you here at...
I won't take it.
Okay. So that's one thing. Is it, so if it's a 1970 Monte Carlo, and I have a buddy from high school who has a 1970 Monte Carlo, and he would love to give me $500 for it so he can put parts on. I can't technically do that either?
Which way are you going on that equation? Are you taking the parts off the car from the shelter belt?
No, he wants to haul the car out of there, so he has them at his place so he can take parts off it.
If he hauled the car out of it and took parts off it, he might be fine technically, but if the car is going down the road and somebody calls up Fred and says, hey, Fred, I saw your old Monty going down the road on a trailer the other day. Oh, you did? I thought that it still exists. Where is it? I still have a title.
My brother-in-law had this happen recently, trying to buy a 77 Trans Am, and there was all kinds of people that had been involved in promises to sell it and all this stuff. And so all of a sudden you're catching yourself in the middle of drama.
Let's assume that isn't the case. Can he sell it to his buddy just out of his field?
People sell things out of their home every day on casual sales, bill of sales, and they have no idea what they're doing with titles or anything. Yep. It happens all the time. It does not make it legal.
Okay, that's what I'm at. I'm not asking any of the... It's not legal for him. That car kind of just has to sit there.
But it happens a lot.
Right. You'll see it say bill of sale only.
Yep.
Which helps a little bit.
They're just making a legal agreement that they're buying this car and you're not getting a title. And if something pops up, you might not own it.
Well, Mark, that did not go, I'm sure, the way
But to answer the question,
yeah.
Anymore, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, on a vehicle like that, if it was super nice, then you jump to places like Bring a Trailer. You've got specialty websites that you can list these vehicles on. But for something like that, you see a ton of that.
Just start with trying to get a title. You might be easier than you think.
check in Minnesota.
What can he do to just, if he wants to just get it off his land? What can you do there?
We talked about that.
Nothing.
No, he can sell it if he wants to.
Legally. I mean, it's
tow company.
There. Okay. Oh, okay.
Call it in as an abandoned vehicle. They can legally tow it as an abandoned vehicle.
Mark.
But just check your state. Some states have made rules to solve this problem because it's kind of a checkmate for a lot of people.
I bet Minnesota has not. Just a guess. As a lifelong resident, I'm betting there's no loophole there for you. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. This is the Under the Hood Show.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150. 888-848-5050. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Edmonton and talk to Elena. Elena, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hello. So I'm calling because I have a 2009 Honda Ridgeline. It's like pushing 300,000 kilometers. It's like 270 right now. And since I've had it, I've had like a slow decrease in fuel economy, but then all of a sudden it was like a massive drop. It was from like 13 liters per 100K to 15.7 liters per 100K. I know y'all are American, but that's like
I'm sitting here going,
That's okay. We get it.
I'm sitting here thinking, Chris, Google it.
And so I'm kind of a car newbie, but I cleaned the mass airflow sensor, replaced the engine air filter, threw in some Redline fuel injector cleaner, and no luck. So I'm wondering like what my next steps should be before I give up and take it to a mechanic.
Well, that is.
I love that. That's a great. I'm going to give up and.
That is a considerable drop, but
I don't have a heated garage, and it's like minus 20 right now. So.
Well, that's still fairly warm if you convert that, but around.
You're trying to give her a soft landing on the temperature.
Yeah. We're in South Dakota is where our home office is here. Where the day before yesterday it was 8 degrees above zero, which is similar, and we routinely see 10, 20 below zero in the winter. But here's what happens: anytime it gets below about 20. We're all starting our cars with remote starters, at least all of us in this room, except for the one with the heated garage over there. But, we let them run, and that will take off. So I've got a car, if my car that gets 17 miles to the gallon, if I start it and run it, now I'm getting 14 is what my average is. It drops a lot because...
Chris is making a very aggressive face over here.
Well, Chris has got a Prius. Yeah. He turns his on and the battery heats it up.
No, this isn't what's going on because she's used to that. This is something different, isn't it?
Is she?
Yeah. Elena.
Because that's part of it. And also winter blend fuels. Winter blend fuels change differently this year than other years because our winter was so different. The temperatures were, and they had some changes in that. So that'll make a difference. So before you give up and go to a mechanic, I would give it another month and a half here so that spring has sprung and the temperatures are warmer and see where you're at. Yeah. And if you discover that your fuel mileage is still way off, then since you've already done the maintenance item like your air filter and cleaning that mass airflow sensor, we've talked about that before, where you're spraying that with the Berryman B12 to clean it up, because if it gets dirty, it can't read how much flow is coming across it, and then it's going to definitely skew that reading. The engine's not going to run, the mixture won't run as correct, and it's going to cause that problem. So you've done all those things. Our next step is we put a scan tool on it and we read it and see what the fuel trims are. Is it adding a whole bunch of fuel? Is it taking away a whole bunch of fuel? And then we need to find out why. You could have had an oxygen sensor fail on it, or you could have had a vacuum leak develop. One of those things is more common on that vehicle. Is it running? It seems to run well, doesn't it? Like driving?
Yeah, it runs pretty well.
Okay, if it's driving fine,
yeah,
then
I haven't noticed any
weird stuff. Yeah, then I don't suspect a problem where you've got a timing is jumped or something like that, although that can drastically cause a change, but you usually feel it when you're driving it. It's got a power change or it runs rougher or something like that. So it's possible it may have had something small, like a vacuum leak developed in an intake gasket. Any kind of leaks between that mass airflow sensor and the engine itself, between there and the valves that's developed that intake system, will cause a drastic change.
Elena, just kind of circle back just on a couple things here. You obviously, like 100, you got a ton of miles on this vehicle. You've been familiar with it for a long time. Those all miles you put on?
Not like I'm the third owner.
Okay, so have you driven it for 100,000 miles?
About.
Okay, so you in your mind, there's something. This is something different, quite different to you. Now we had some.
I don't recall. I was just gonna say I don't recall like in the winters it ever being this low, the fuel economy.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
Did you ever have a check engine light come on? Did you? I can't remember if you said that or not.
Not since I've owned it. No, never.
Okay. All right. And then the last question I have is that I believe that watching the national weather, because we've had such a freaky winter, you had some really nice warm stretches too in the last 4 months, correct?
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, lots.
And did
Lots
that
of
fuel
up and down.
economy continue to stay poor during that period of time?
It did, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I think that what Russ is bringing up at the end here about
Well,
some of this
thanks,
analysis.
guys.
Well, I'm just trying to get back to that, because when you got somebody that's driven that vehicle that long,
Right.
like Chris was trying to say, she's noticing something that's pretty different. The stuff that Russ brought up is exactly right for people that are, we get those calls all the time.
So on a Honda that's running fine, Toyota and Lexus are the same way. Everything can seem and appear great. Everything can look perfect. But when we look at the fuel trims, we see they're off. And we have found a number of oxygen sensors that have had issues with those. And most of these, especially the foreign ones like that, we use the NGK oxygen sensors in them. And that's what you're going to get back to like an OEM equivalent on there. And an oxygen sensor, once it hits, 100,000 miles, 150 kilometers, it's like a spark plug. It will wear and degrade. The zirconium and things they put in them starts to wear off, and they just can't read like they used to. And although it'll give the computer a fairly decent reading and it'll run well, it starts using more fuel.
Elena, you need to, like Russ said, you need to go through and just do what you've done. Check all that stuff externally. Check that air horn going up. Make sure everything's tight. Listen, look for vacuum lines that are off. Do all that stuff. And if you don't find that, you might have to give up and bring it in to let somebody do a fuel trim test on it.
Elena, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's see if we can get it. We got about a minute and a half. Pat, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Morning, guys. Local caller, and I have a 2019 GMC Canyon, about 45,000 miles on it, and I'm having a problem where when I start it and take off, it falls flat on its face. I hadn't driven it for months. Started it last night, took off, and it did it twice between shifts. Kind of looking for some ideas. I've had it into the dealer 3 times. Last time, unfortunately, I had 37,000 miles on it. I got hit with a diagnostic on it.
Oh yeah. We've seen a few of these with throttle body problems, even with lower miles. We saw them and then sent them back to the dealer, and they got them replaced that were under warranty, because we've got a couple customers that do oil changes on brand new vehicles with us. But we've also seen it with some with 60 to 80,000 miles. So it's possible. Could be a number of things causing this, but it's very possible that you've got a throttle body that's going bad, because very few things cause these Canyons to fall on their face. But I've seen the throttle bodies, that electric throttle body, be a problem on some of these.
And that's not something he can just clean.
No.
He's gonna have to.
And if it fails within, if it
In
fails
its range,
it might not come up.
It'll
And
never
so,
turn the light on, so it may have to get worse.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivant's.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter, here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here. We've got some folks who have been waiting while we were playing our music, so let's go ahead and get right to the phones. And welcome, Bert. You're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hey, guys. Nice to be visiting with you. I've got a Honda that's got a peculiar kind of a whine. It started up in the morning, and it's just fine, and put it in gear, it's just fine. let off the brake, and it starts backing up, and it starts to get this whine somewhere in between a clarinet and a trombone.
Can you make the noise for us, Bert?
Mm,
Oh, yeah, all right. I was not expecting that.
That was a small moose.
Small moosing noise.
yeah,
Where's it come from?
I don't think there's. My wife has felt that it comes from the front end. Thought it was a brake. She described it as a scrape, but I don't hear a scrape at all. I just hear this musical note kind of sound, and it goes away. You put it into drive and back, and it's gone. But it's only backing out of the garage or any time of parking space or something like that.
Have you stood outside the vehicle while someone else backs the vehicle up?
I have not.
Okay. I wasn't accusing.
It'd be a good practice just to see if you hear it from the outside, if you can pinpoint it a little bit more.
Does it only do it while the vehicle is rolling, or if you roll and then stop and it's still in reverse, does it keep doing it, or does it have to be rolling?
It has to be rolling, has been my experience.
Does it get louder or quieter with the speed you're rolling backwards as you're pulling out of the garage? You pull out fast, does it, no change?
I haven't noticed that.
Okay, because if it's just one steady noise, one steady moose as you back up until you drive off, I'm wondering if it's not the exhaust heat shield. And you put it in reverse, the engine leans one way as opposed to the other because the engine mounts the way they go, and it makes it rattle, and you get it's like a buzzing of it's a buzzing. And then,
but I'll say this: I've had a couple issues with heat shields, and the sound is not transferable. They're not recognizable. The different sounds I've heard, they're not similar. Some of them are different enough to sound completely different.
They can all be different. They all kind of have that buzzing sound of a tarp that's pretty tight in the wind, buzzing when it's not flapping, but it's pretty tight, just buzzing.
Up to it sounds like the drive shaft is banging around down there, and
it could
they
be
can get
really bad. And as you're backing up,
no.
you would hear it, and then it goes away when you throw it in the other gear. Or the heat will change it too, so it wouldn't do it again.
Right. Outside of that, I've had a knowledgeable friend thought that maybe it was a vacuum or a vacuum hose.
There's very little vacuum on that 11 Accord, but it still could be a leak in a vacuum tube, like the air intake or something causing that. But if it goes, you said it goes away when you put it in drive, but then you put it in reverse again after you've driven it 5 minutes, it's gone, right?
Come back to reverse later on at return.
Okay, so it's constantly doing it, so the heat doesn't seem to be affecting it. My first thought is a heat shield up there where they run up underneath your feet there on the exhaust. There's a couple shields.
I don't think a vacuum leak would do that. Be that selective between reverse and drive.
Right.
I think that I'm a little more concerned that it could be just a noise within the transmission in those drums or gears of the transmission.
I'm not going there.
But that is something that would, and it'd probably go that way forever. It's just probably something with a little bit of wear in reverse that could be causing that noise. Can you sit there in the garage and just go from neutral to reverse and get it to the noise to come and go?
I really haven't tried that aspect of it. But it seems that like if I pull up and back out of the garage and then put it in park and let some other people climb in and then put it in reverse again, it does come back, as far as that all seems to be prior to actual movement of the vehicle, but I can't say for sure on that.
So are you saying that if he puts it in reverse, it goes to a parking lot, big empty parking lot, and go in reverse and just bump it into neutral and reverse at idle speed, but going backwards?
Yeah, and just see if he notices that noise coming and going. Because at that point, if you're not rolling and you get the same noise, it's more than likely just a noise coming out of the transmission that may not be chronic, but it could be just some certain wear on a certain gear set or a drum set inside that transmission. Something to look at. Because otherwise, if you were rolling and it made the noise, boy, you'd have to have a heck of a brake noise or something odd there or a wheel bearing noise, and it wouldn't make a musical note typically.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change with the speed?
Well, that I can't say because you got to be careful backing up. I don't really
I would
back up all that quickly.
You might try just playing around a little bit in a big parking lot between reverse and park and just listen. And maybe if you get into that reverse gear and there's nobody behind you, just give it a little boop, bloop, 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 and see if it resonates with that reverse gear. Maybe even a little power brake, just a light power brake to see if it resonates with that reverse gear.
See if you can get it to play a tune. Rev it up a little higher, a little lower.
And if a lot of people gather, let's get a camera. Let's put it on YouTube.
Yep.
Make a TikTok.
Let's go viral.
So you got some work to do there, Bert. And I would, if you're gonna bring it in, he's gonna go ahead and do all this stuff before that too, because this is all stuff you can tell them.
I have one more question for Bert.
All right,
Bert, what does it take to get on your knowledgeable friends list? What's the requirement for you to call somebody a knowledgeable friend?
Well, you guys on my knowledgeable friends list, you guys are the superstars.
I just wondered what his qualifications were to be on the knowledgeable friend list. And he probably
he is engineer, retired.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That's a good knowledgeable friend. I just didn't know because there's different levels. I've got knowledgeable friends about different subjects.
You're my knowledgeable friend on a lot of subjects, but certainly not others.
Something you do not ask me.
Bert, thanks. Sometimes I do just to see what's going to happen.
It's a test to see what kind of craziness comes out of me.
Bert, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to New Jersey and talk to Raymond. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Raymond, what can we do for you?
Hi. I got a 2018 Subaru Outback. And I'm changing the transmission fluid, CVT transmission. I have the pan off, and I have it all cleaned up, ready to go back together. But it's my son's car, and he got a rubber gasket. It didn't have one on there; it just had the silicone.
Right.
What do you recommend I do?
So Chris, this is what you always want, a live call. Uh-huh. This sounds like this is happening this weekend or tomorrow or tonight.
Is the pan off right now?
As we speak.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris loves this. He loves live action.
All right. So there are some vehicles that come with a silicone-based type sealant, an anaerobic sealant, something that comes out of a tube to put the pan on instead of a gasket.
Oof. I don't want that. I don't want that responsibility if I'm doing it.
There are a number of companies that would always include a gasket to go in there, thinking that some people don't have the ability to get the proper sealer or don't know about using sealer or how much to use, so they just want to include a gasket, and then they give you some torque specs. Our partner, Dorman Products, is really good about giving you what the vehicle needs, whether it's a gasket or sealer or whatever it is, and then they have torque specs. Plus, you can always call them or get on their website and find out what you need to use. Because here's the problem. You've got a gasket, and yes, you can use it, and with the proper torque, it should technically seal pretty well, but it may not. The best thing to do would be to get the factory recommended type of sealer, put that on there, but not too much. It's just enough that you want just enough on there that it'll seal it, but not so much as that it holds the pan away from the body of that transmission or oozes inside of the transmission or out. And if you use the wrong sealer, it can get into the...
Chris doesn't want that responsibility.
No, absolutely.
It can get into the valves of the transmission. So if you use a type of sealer that the transmission fluid will be a solvent to and break it down, it will get into the transmission and gum it up. So you want to use the proper sealer. So therefore, you could get online and find out what sealer that is. There are some sealers that will say right on them, recommended for transmission pans, then they know it's impervious to most fluids. CVT fluid is different than regular fluid, so you want to be specific. It'll say this sealer is safe for that. But we, in our own shop, we use a product called the Right Stuff. It just comes in a black tube and it says the Right Stuff on it. And we use that for almost everything, every project that requires a silicone type, let's throw out the silicone part, a liquid type seal you put in, front timing covers, oil pan gaskets, intake manifold ends, wherever there's not a rubber seal and it requires this, because a lot of cars have gone to this now because it stays flexible pretty much forever. We pull these covers off at 300,000 miles and you can pull out the factory sealer. It's still flexible. It may have started leaking, but it's still flexible. But the regular gaskets, they get hard and dried out and they will fail. So if it was me in my driveway, I'd get the right type of regular sealer for it. Now, if you're willing to clean it up, put it on, use that gasket, and you don't over torque it, you don't want the bolts to fall out, but you don't want them so tight that it warps something, you could give that a shot, but you've got to be willing to know that if in 6 months you see that it's dripping a little bit because it's leaking, then that fluid's expensive. So you could get a very clean drain pan, put under there, take the cover off if it hasn't been covered, and clean it first, and then drain that fluid out, put the sealer back in it, put it together, and you put that fluid back in because it's not going to be.
Russ, I always get curious when I listen to things. Raymond, I've got to ask a follow-up question again. If you said this and I didn't hear it, shame on me. Where did you get the gasket from?
My son got it.
Why do you have the gasket? Did he go buy a kit? Did he buy why does he have that gasket?
Yeah. Maybe we don't know.
Also bought I know it's not a filter, but that metal
screen
to pick up the thing.
Yeah, so you can buy a screen kit.
So if he bought if he bought a filter kit or a screen kit, did he buy it from Subaru or did he buy it from someone else?
Oh, there you go.
Well, it's Beck Arnley.
Okay, then it's not Subaru. Yep. Then so Beck Arnley makes some pretty good products, and if they're including that gasket with it, again, it's one of those things where you put it in and it should seal up because it's designed to, but sometimes we just have better luck with the factory sealer.
And then it's going to become kind of dealer's choice because you guys have become very good with that and you know what to do.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm going to guess that this company, which is a known company, a lot of those people work with the American Transmission Rebuilders Association, and they come out with solutions down the road to say, you know what, consumers are having a problem getting these things. They're putting the wrong gasket sealant in it. They're getting sealant inside the transmission. It's killing them. Let's just make a gasket for this thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens. So I think that they're trying to make it easier for a do-it-yourselfer to not get it wrong. Like Chris said, I don't want that responsibility to figure out how much goop to put on there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. That's what Dorman Products is doing. They're making an OE solution that corrects the OE problem. And if the OE problem was that the gasket sealer is crap, then the fix is we're going to get you a good gasket that everybody can use at home.
And if that was the case and I knew it came from a reputable supplier that is in that mindset, I would use it.
Yeah, don't just use the kit that came with it.
If it's something you ordered on Amazon and you didn't know the supplier and
the name's more gooder, no.
Yeah, then I would probably not even think about it.
Right.
That's why I was asking those questions.
Does that help you out there, Raymond?
Yeah, I do have a tube of the Permatex Ultra Black gasket maker.
Don't use that.
Sensor safe.
Yeah, don't use that. No? That is one you shouldn't use on a transmission for transmission fluid. That can be used like on an intake manifold for intake gasket ends and things like that. But in fluid contact with the transmission fluid is much more solvent based than engine oil. So that would work on an oil pan as well. So intake manifold, sensor safe, that type of thing. But don't use it on the transmission. That's where we've we've run into some with some issues with that.
Raymond, thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
I don't know if we gave him 100% confidence on that deal because we gave both sides of that coin.
I'd go with the
We're
gasket.
a strong 55, 60.
I would use the gasket if it's a name brand company that is in this space.
Yeah.
And they sell transmission components regularly. They would not put that with there.
I have a
and
question.
have problems later if it wasn't what they found to be the best.
I have a question that I'm dealing with in my own life, and maybe why I'm nervous about this. If we go to your shop right now, this would never happen, by the way. Let me be very clear.
Did you go
say,
to my shop?
Here's the pan, and here's the tube of the right stuff. What is the right amount? Am I spreading it with my fingers so
like
it's
I
thin,
said,
or am I caulking it like
enough-
a window?
Enough that it seals it, but not so much that it oozes out both
A film.
sides.
You put a film on there.
So, like with my finger, if I went along, it would
If
be
you have
enough.
two pieces of metal and you bolt them together tightly and then you hold them up to the light, if there's no gaps in there, this is going to take almost zero sealer.
Okay.
But if you hold it up and you see like an 1/8 inch gap at most places, like everywhere in between all the bolt holes, you're going to need an 1/8 inch of sealer to seal that. You just don't want so much that when you tighten this thing up that it oozes out, because it's going to ooze to the inside as well.
What I would do is I'd put some on there, bolt it up, and then I would spread it around the outside, hoping to fix any mistake I made.
We have seen engines come into our shop before, Chris, that have had this done.
Right?
They've spread sealer like around all the leaking spots, and it doesn't fix it.
Dry it out a little, scrape off the excess. Make
Yeah,
sure
you're definitely giving it the extra beat on the outside because you now have zero confidence you did it right on the inside.
Absolutely.
I have had.
You're just wasting sealant and making a mess.
Absolutely.
I am awful when it comes to caulk and sealer.
I'm just gonna throw that caulk
like
gun
for a
away.
home.
That thing's
Nope.
coated.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Or I'll use it in the cold. I used one last week and it was cold, and I was trying to put it on. And I was like trying to do it too fast, and of course the side blows out.
Yeah.
So then you just scoop it out and you smear it on with your fingers.
It gets ugly at that point.
See the backsplash I put in. Woo-wee. Let's go to New Hampshire and talk to Josh. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Josh, what can we do for you?
Yes, I just wanted to start off by saying thank you guys for everything that you do and all the information that you bring. I've been a long-time listener and first-time caller.
Well, thanks,
man.
I've got a 2020 Jeep Gladiator, and I noticed the last couple of times I've come home from work, I've had a coolant smell. And so I've looked, and I haven't been able to find anything that's, weeping or leaking or anything like that. Would this be something that I should use, say, K-Seal in, or is this something I'm about 1,000 miles out of, or about to be out of warranty? Is it something I should go to the dealer for, or try that?
Yeah, don't just seal it.
K-seal it. No, in this particular case, knowing something that I know, I had a 2017 Wrangler, which is very similar vehicle. Now yours is based on the new JL series with the 2020 Gladiator, but the drivetrains were very similar, and I believe they still had a bit of a challenge with the crimps on the radiators coming loose and the radiators leaking a bit, and they would seep just enough when it got warm. You'd pick up that antifreeze smell. And K-Seal would help that problem because it's a very small leak.
Yep, and it's usually the bottom tank that's where it's leaking.
Yeah, but
where you can't see it.
You might just call them back and say, "Is the radiator covered yet?" Even though it's 1,000 miles, because they had a number of them that were a challenge. I would hope they figured it out by 2020 because mine was a 2017.
And he's 1,000 miles under.
I had 2 of them put in my Jeep with a leaky radiator.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, if he's under,
Definitely.
make him fix it.
Yeah,
get
and
in
then
there.
the other challenge that they had on some of those Jeeps is there was and minivans, but there was a fitting for coolant up on the engine that would crack, but that would typically give you a sprayer. You'd have a high pinhole spray coming out of a plastic fitting under the hood, and then that would obviously cause a mess, and you'd have some coolant leak. But that radiator one can sweat a little bit, and the radiator gets hot, then you smell it, and you just won't see it, but it'll sweat it. And eventually that sweat kind of burns away that little bit of a leak, and you don't notice it.
You could smell it.
Yeah.
You should get in there, though, right? And bring it in.
I think so. That'd be my...
And they should know what you're talking about. right when you bring it in, right? Yeah.
They did. They knew all about it when I was in 2017. I hope they fixed it, though.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150.
More powerful than spilled milk in the backseat of a hot car. This is Under the Hood.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Don't forget, you can watch the show on our YouTube channel. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Hoodie Fan Club at UnderTheHoodShow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Scott Provis, congratulations from our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu. Check them out today and become a better automotive technician.
All right, before we were so rudely interrupted, we were talking to Josh about his Jeep. Josh, what else can we do for you on this?
Yes, I just wanted to know too. I plan on keeping this for a while, as it's my dream truck. So when it comes to like spark plugs, serpentine belt, fluid changes, like when should I start looking at that stuff? Again, this has got almost 60,000.
You know, you're going to be looking at start about that 80,000 mile range. Start looking at the transmission fluid, front and rear differential, transfer case, pull spark plugs out, look at them, see what the condition of those are. We're finding that now. Some will say, manufacturers will say longer, some will say less, dependent. There are some vehicles out there you've got to look at the service manuals and find out, because there are a lot of vehicles now with these small turbo engines that are 30,000 miles on these spark plugs.
And nobody's thinking of that.
No, until they start misfiring and the end of the plug's gone. And they're like, well, no, I thought they were 100. No, remember they used to be 30 and then they went to 100 and everybody thought, oh, I got to change them earlier and they were too soon and now they're too late. So you just got to look every vehicle individually and see what it is. But we're finding with our own experience in the shop that it's about that 80,000 mile range where the transmission fluid and the transfer case fluid is starting to get dark enough where we're saying, you know, I'm not comfortable with that. I think we should be looking at a change, at least looking at it somewhere between that 80 and 90,000 mile range. It's definitely not going to hurt it when you get up there. Now, these transmissions with more speeds, more expensive fluid, they cost more to flush, but you're going longer. We used to flush them at 30. Now, if it costs twice as much to do the job, but we're flushing it at 60 or 80, we've doubled it anyway. So it's a wash either way.
Right, yeah, because it's got, every now and again there's like a rough idle. I wouldn't call it a rough idle, but like at idle there's like you can feel it a little bit. And I just didn't know if that was the plug. The owner's manual says 100,000 for the plug, which it just seems kind of high.
It is. It's just that they throw that out there. It's a great number when people are purchasing a car to kind of get a guide of how long it'll be before they have to start doing expensive maintenance. And that when they say 100,000, it helps out, especially with that sale. But you've got to look at it earlier. Just assume it's going to be earlier or later, and you've got to use that judgment and find out for yourself.
And I would pull those plugs, and just inspect them and make sure you're not getting a misfire because of something you could read on a spark plug. If one was real clean or one was extra sooty compared to the others, I hate to say that, but on a 3.6, you got to pay attention. And so I think that check on your radiator at the dealer and see if they can still cover that under warranty. And if not, a K-seal would be very good for that small leak, and it would probably keep it that way for a long, long time just to be fine. If it did, God forbid, happen to be something internal in the engine that's causing a little bit of a coolant leak and then giving you that smell because it's burning just a little bit of coolant, the K-seal is going to take care of that pretty easily too. And so it's not going to hurt a thing, and it might help you take care of that problem.
Josh, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Matthew. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Matthew, what can we do for you?
Well, thank you for taking my call. I have a 1993 Ford F-250 with a 351 Windsor motor. And when you start it up, this truck has 207,000 miles on it. And I've had a lot of stuff done to it over the period of time. They've changed the spark plugs, put the new wires, but the idle control on that throttle body seems to And but what it does is when you start it up, it'll run, and it's a farm truck, and it wants a air conditioner service truck, but it just gets idling higher and higher and higher. And so the last guy that worked on it plugged off the AGR valve. He said, you don't need an AGR valve. So he plugged it off, and it still does it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought I'd ask somebody else that might know what's going on.
Well, it might. Yeah, the EGR valve. The EGR valve is there to bring down cylinder temperatures to reduce emissions coming from the tailpipe. And it also can prevent some detonation too. So if you run into a situation with really hot weather and the hot temperatures under the hood, it can cause detonation. So the EGR valve is good to have in that case. But with this throttle issue, you may not have a problem with that idle air control motor, but every time you change it, it is it's got to relearn a little bit, so it's works for a little while, or it could be bad. We put a number of them on, but not that many. If 2 or 3 over the life of a truck, but not a dozen of them. There's
another vacuum control that's on the left side of the throttle body when you're looking at it, and he plugged that off and disconnected it.
That is the airflow for that idle air. Now, if you plug it off, it should not physically be able to increase idle, period, because that is where the air comes into the intake that the throttle valve, that electronic idle air control motor opens up. Now, he's blocked that off and it still idles up.
Yep.
If that is blocked off and it still idles up, you have a vacuum leak, because the only way for idle to increase is for the vacuum to...
How do you find the vacuum leak?
Well, that's where you go around. We usually spray it so we can find it. We use a carburetor cleaner, and we spray around the throttle body area where it doesn't get into it, but around it and around the intake gaskets, things like that. If you've got either an external vacuum leak or an internal vacuum leak inside of the engine, like it's leaking on the bottom side of the manifold, pulling it out of the crankcase, it can idle up and do that because it's letting airflow into there. And a shop can do that. They know exactly what to do to find that. But when you block off a throttle body like that, so the blade is closed and it's only allowing it to idle, let's say 600 RPM. Air has to enter that hole on the side for the throttle body or the idle air control motor in order to get into the intake. If you plug that off, it's not getting in there anymore. We know that. So it's got to be coming from somewhere else. And usually if you block that off, it'll make it worse because it pulls harder on that other vacuum area leaking. But we've seen a few of those with intake gaskets leaking. So I would have a shop go that route and see if they might be able to find it. But it's definitely got something vacuum causing it to increase like that.
Okay. Well, I guess we can try that.
Yep. Good luck.
Thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150.
I was just going to say, from a parts selling perspective, usually when you're on to the second one, there's something else going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, parts do fail.
Yeah.
And sometimes parts fail. Like Russ said, it's part of the process of replacing them. Sometimes if it's a lubricated part, sometimes the second part just helps clean the system out.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just the act of replacing the part is what you're doing. You're moving a harness around. You're, like Russ said, in this case.
The same as turning a key off and restarting the car. Well, it works fine every time I shut it off and restart it again for a little while.
Yeah, you just wiggled the whole wiring harness around and turned it sideways to get this plug off of there. Maybe it's a wiring connection.
Right.
Stuff like that comes up. It drives you a bit batty from a parts seller's perspective, but it's just part of the territory.
Right.
But some folks are real eager, and they just think it's always that parts problem.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a lot that it's not. Sometimes it is, but not as often as it's something else.
866-594-4150. I posted a story on Facebook this week from show contributor Rodney about GM and the story of the personal data from the cars. They said, hey, we got some good news. We're not selling your data anymore.
So we think. How
Right.
long? What's the story here? I didn't read the article. I saw the.
It has been traditional for a very long time for pretty much all automakers and anybody for that matter that has a business. They just sell your data. It's a profit center. If if we can make probably millions of dollars, I would imagine, on somebody as large as a company that's big, an automaker, to sell that data to people. Well, one of the places they sell it to is insurance companies. They take things like speed of your car, how hard you brake, how hard you corner, how hard you accelerate. They can take all those things, collision data, and they can sell it to insurance companies. But now, what would an insurance company use that for? The only thing I could think of would be to figure out rates. What is the risk of, a risk assessment, which gives you rates. And recently there have been a number of news articles about the fairly large increase in automotive insurance across the country, from anywhere from about 18% up to 48% on just across the board, depending on where you live. And you would think some of that may have come from data collected from any number of sources. So if General Motors is going to say, we are no longer selling any of it, well, that's good for them. I think that's great. But now what about the probably thousands and thousands of other companies that do it on a routine basis? I know it
And the article I posted talked about other car manufacturers that still do it.
Yeah, and there's more than that.
Yeah.
So when I purchased a vehicle from Shannon a couple years ago, and I paid cash for it. I had the title put in my name. I did not take it to a shop to have it worked on yet. I had some body work done at one, but that hadn't occurred yet. And within 2 weeks, I was getting extended warranty papers in the mail. I got like 5 different companies trying to sell me extended warranty companies. And we didn't sell that information here. I know that for a fact. So the only place it could have come from was the state when they registered it. That data has to be going to somebody under your vehicle registration so they know who purchased what. So pretty much whatever you do, cell phone, whatever it is, that data is going out there. So if companies...
So GM, why did they think they needed to make this statement? I didn't read the article.
I don't know. Somebody must have brought it to their attention.
They got a lawsuit going or something and they had to make a public statement, or?
I just think it's great if they're going to stop doing it.
That there was some... I think that's what brought it to their attention. I mean, I think that's what happened. I don't think they put it out there.
It wasn't like, yeah.
Yeah, hey, good news, guys. I don't think that's
Let's not do that anymore.
Right. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to North Dakota and talk to Mike. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Mike, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. You're going to help out my daughter. She bought a 2019 Jeep Cherokee. It had about 15,000 miles on it. Nothing from the dealer that there was a problem. And when she puts the car in park, it has a tendency, not always, but very regularly, to start to roll back, like it doesn't go from a drive to park and engage.
Yep.
And that, and we've been into the dealership. They tell us they can't find anything wrong. I'm at the point where I want to bring a lawyer in and tell them I'm going to own the dealership if we run over a kid. I don't know how to talk to them. I don't know how to address the problem any longer, if there is one. And I've got a video of the car doing it. We showed it to the dealership. You can sit in the car, put it in from drive to park, and it rolls back.
Okay.
Any thoughts on what we could do?
Yes. Does it do it every time?
I don't believe it does it every time. I
Okay.
need to check with her about that.
Well,
There's not a lot of hills.
right. Well, you should be able to put it in park and then push it backwards, but the dealership is going to have to, they're going to have to verify this. And
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Yep. So the first step is they have zero responsibility to you until they can verify a problem, because, it could be anything. But once they do verify it, then their responsibility, it doesn't fall on them. It falls on the manufacturer of the vehicle if it's under warranty or if it's declared a safety issue, and they've got a number of them. So what happens is you've got this video of it doing it, but they've got to see it. If you can get the dealership to see this even once and say, I don't know, at that point they elevate it, they pass it on to the manufacturer, who will start hopefully looking into this. Now, what really gets their attention is when you get online to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration website, and that's where you enter the problem you're having. If it's just your vehicle, it's not going to go anywhere. But if 50 other people have sent this in and they're saying, oh, this is the exact same problem we're seeing across these vehicles, then they start looking a little further. And that's how we get a lot of investigations for vehicles. There's been a number of vehicles that would pop out of park over the years, and they've had reflashes done. And that could be the thing. It may not be, when you put the dial in park, it may not be putting it into park. It may be a problem in the module that just needs a software reflash. But that's how they learn it. But until they actually verify it, they can't do anything. And if the vehicle is still in warranty, well, that'd be wonderful, because then you can really keep going back and back and back. But at this point, without it being in warranty, unless they can actually verify something, then they can't push it onto the manufacturer. And unless even at the dealership, if they do verify the problem, if they don't know how to fix it, they do have the right to say we don't want to fix it, because we can pass it on to the people who hopefully can, but we don't know what's wrong with it. We've never seen this before. We don't know where to look, and it's out of warranty, so we don't have to get involved. So they will try their best, though, especially on a safety thing, to get someone that can get this resolved for you. But for us here, this is the first time we've ever heard of this problem happening on that style vehicle, or even on a Chrysler vehicle type thing with that system. Yep. And I haven't seen anything come into our shop either.
That's a smaller Cherokee, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so your first step is, your best bet is to get that thing, if you can figure out how to duplicate it, whether it's time of day, the heat, the humidity, cold, whatever it may be, that you can get it to do it, how long you've driven, narrow it down and try to repeat it, so you can go into the dealer and say, come here, service writer guy, look, I'm doing it right now. See this thing? See it moving backwards? It's in park. Oh, I see that. Get them to put that down, and then you can really move. But if it's doing it all the time, I would, no matter what, I would get onto the NHTSA website and fill out the form, just so it's there. And if it's nothing, they'll put it into the proper file for that too. But at least it's there in case there's others. There's too many people who never use those things that are available to the public, that should have, which would have helped more people.
Does that help you out at all, Mike?
It does. My question that I kind of wondered about, and I'll be the one to take it into the dealership next time, but they gave her a loaner car for 2 days, and theoretically, and said they played with it. They told her that they couldn't find anything and that she should contact the manufacturer. That seemed odd to me.
They can do that because, they couldn't find it. If they found it themselves, they would have. But since they didn't, it's not. I mean, they're there to help fix the cars as an agent of the manufacturer. Right. But the manufacturer's responsible for the car sometimes in one way or other. But yeah, if they gave her a loaner car, then they were really stepping up, they wanted to find this. But I'm surprised, did they not tell you, or did they tell you that they had seen this before on other vehicles?
They said they hadn't ever seen it before.
Yeah, and we haven't either. And usually with the 500,000 people listen to our show, we usually get one or two that say, hey, I'm having this problem. And then not too long later, we see something come out.
Yeah, you wonder if there's something wrong in a transfer case that's letting the drivetrain slip even though it's in park.
It could be just worn. It could be that it got jammed at some point.
Yeah, or is there a assist that has to come in simultaneously from the electronic sensor or electronic calipers in the back to lock the brakes that's not happening for that little bit of roll they might have. there are some things, but they would have probably found that, I think.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That is not a fun thing to worry about every day. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Gary. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Gary, what can we do for you?
My wife and I, we bought a 23 Honda CRV about a month ago, and she came home last night, parked it in the garage, and later I went out, and as soon as I got in the garage towards the back of the vehicle, I could hear something running. It almost sounded like the fuel pump or something. I walked around the vehicle and then back to the back, bent down. I could hear it better after I did that. I went and got one of the fobs, started it, backed it out of the garage, and then pulled it back in and shut it off, and then there was no noise.
Mm-hmm. That's normal. That's normal.
It sounded like there was, yeah.
Yeah, we've had this happen, but we've had this question before, and we've done some look into them. And what it is part of the emission system. The vent valve that's in the back for the fuel tank is trying to equalize the pressure in the tank to get it where it wants to be, so that it can do a proper evap vent test on it. And that's a lot of the vehicles with the ventless or with the capless fuel systems are that way. But yeah, it's a normal thing. But I can see a lot of people would be alerted to it when all of a sudden they hear their vehicle going click 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 underneath. They're like, why is it doing that? And I've never had that before. But it should stop. It usually stops. And they'll say, I believe if you read the service manual, there is something in there about it under the emissions towards the rear of the book, and it'll say it could do it for up to 5 minutes. It may cycle back and forth.
Which seems like a very long time.
Yeah, it cycles back and forth. But what it's wanting to do is you've driven the vehicle, it shakes up the fuel, and if you've ever shooken up you've got a gas can, you've got your lawnmower filled, it's in the trunk of your car, when bad place, and you're going down the road, and you come home, and you crack the vent open, and you're like, whoa,
or
it didn't have pressure. Yeah, so they're doing that with the tank. They want to equalize those pressures so that when you fire it up, they don't have something going on in there. So that's what it's doing, and it keeps that system. That's why we tell people when you're doing a current drain, you've got to let the vehicle sit until all systems have gone to sleep and they're dead and they're shut off. That's one of those systems that can stay active for up to about 5 minutes.
All right, this is the after show. Gary, are you still there? Okay, Gary's gone. It seemed to me like he was talking about a little bit later.
Oh, it can start. You shut it off, and it could start up anywhere within 0 seconds to 5 minutes after you shut it off, and then can last up to 5 minutes. We've had this call a couple times before. One was on a Cadillac.
I remember
like a
saying
2021 Cadillac, and I had to go look, and I was like, "What is going on?" And
when we got the Prius, that thing does
Oh, weird noises.
Yeah, it does all sorts. It does all sorts of stuff.
Sounds like a little R2D2.
All times of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you have the key fob on you, it will do more stuff when you walk near it.
Oh yeah, because it's powering back up again.
Yeah.
That's it's just something that cars are doing now that, and not all of them do it, but they're doing now that they didn't do before.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So.
I could tell a little bit of a small horror story from something like this. A friend of mine has a vehicle they're trying to repair. They're putting an engine in it. Things aren't matching up. They've got a shop they want to take it to because they are better with this type of engine and they want them to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to tow it, and Russ is going to go, oh my gosh. And it's a late model LT version of a GM engine. So has direct injection right into the cylinders versus going through an intake manifold and everything like they've done for years. They had the fuel rails pulled. Well, excuse me, the intake was off.
Mm-hmm.
They were towing the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
The battery cable was pulled, but sitting close enough to the hot cable that it was touching.
Mm-hmm.
When they went to open the door and put it onto the tow truck, it started on fire.
Because it arced and
it arced the battery cable, and at the same time injected fuel out because the intake was off. And and all they did was open the door of the vehicle, which on those newer vehicles turns the fuel pump on.
Yep.
And so it started pumping fuel as soon as they trying to stage it for the startup, and they had a fire under the hood.
And you would never in a million years.
They would, up until that point, it would never cross their mind. But when they opened the door is when it happened.
We have
something that it's different.
We pull the battery on everything we're working on, but we have had to put a battery cable back on so we could pull a vehicle, roll it out of the shop.
To get the transmission disengaged and
on
stuff?
One of those type of vehicles where, okay, put the key, make sure it's in the unlocked position, and it was a GM, but we put it in the unlocked position. Don't turn the fuel pump on. You got both fuel lines disconnected under the hood. Battery's hooked up. We open the door, and bzzz, pump comes on, and fuel goes everywhere, and you go, whatever. We push it out, and we're fine. Controlled situation. If we had a fire, we could have put it out quickly. That is a pain, so you've got to know what happens. So now, the guys get better with every one. So now they'll pull the vehicle in, they'll put it in neutral, and then start disconnecting stuff. Because now we don't have to turn anything on. We don't have to go, because some of them are super hard to get out of gear.
Do you guys ever do like fire drills? Like
sure.
standing in front of a car
We
and
set
go,
something
okay.
on fire, we set a person on fire, and then we try to put them out.
Not the person.
No.
Well, it was,
I just like
it was pretty funny when one of our guys, because nobody got hurt, he set himself on fire, accidentally. And I'm looking at the video. He goes, "You got to see the video." And I look, and here he is. He's like, "Oh, look, my arm's on fire," and with clothing. And here's a fire extinguisher. Huh? He's out, and then he dusts himself off, and he goes back to work. He's just like, whatever. And some things look much brighter on camera when they're burning than they actually are. We had a pan of of something under something. I think it was a motor on a stand, and this was underneath, but something dropped in it. It was hot, and we're like, okay, don't weld anywhere around that. But it lit up, and it looked like it was this giant blaze. But watching it in actuality, it was like a foot tall, and it was just a little colored
But when
flame.
it flashed up, it looked amazing.
In the camera, it was like, whoa! It was ginormous.
So anyway, that was something that just happened within the last month with a friend of mine.
I have one more thing.
They put it out right. They put it out right away. They still repaired the vehicle, but it was eventful.
We were talking to Mike from North Dakota about the Cherokee, the Jeep. What was the one that rolled back and killed the guy?
That was a Grand Cherokee
from Star Trek. The actor from Star Trek that died from the new Star Trek when the Jeep pinned him between his mailbox and his house. Was it Sulu or Chekhov? Chekhov. Yeah. So he went out to get his mail, and he opened the box, grabbed it, turned around, and all of a sudden he got hit by it.
I don't know that you had to do the big sound effect, but yeah.
Well, okay, it went.
And that was the first with the rotator knob in that vehicle.
Yeah, and I don't. They did say what happened, and it wasn't the fault of the vehicle. I don't believe in this case, but something happened.
They changed that. That was what changed.
There have been some of these vehicles as they've progressed that have had flash updates for it that I have forgot to put into park because they were push button and I drove them and then I just got out. Well, now you open a door. That's why the Dodge and the GM and the Fords, you open the door, it puts it into park and even locks the parking brake. Doesn't want it to roll.
And you hear the parking brakes in the back go.
But a Prius, some of those models, you pull up, forget to hit the park button, and you leave it running because you leave the power on. You get out, and it might roll down and into the creek at the state park where we live. Yes. Have you ever left your car on and got out of it and forgot about it, like when you first got it?
Let me tell you something.
That's a yes.
No, yeah, absolutely I have.
I've left your car on when I got out of it.
Yeah.
Changing the oil one day.
The weird thing about it is I've done it, I'm going to say I've done it 6 times over the life of my vehicle, but only in 2 time frames. Like, I forget it once and I go, oh, and then I do it a couple more times within the next week. And then I don't do it for years.
I think there's a flash program update for that if you take it to the dealer, where if a door is opened, it puts it into park immediately. Because the new ones do that. They go into park. And I think they had that for a safety
So there's no
update.
fix for that, is what you're telling me. I could bring it to the dealer, have them reflash it. So what you're saying
I
to
think
me
that's
is
the fix.
There is no fix. It's impossible.
For you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fix is put a sticker on your dash that says, make sure
Turn
it's in
off
park.
the-
Like when we say,
yeah.
make sure the alarm's on.
And I don't know if it's when I like drive another what it is that because it's happened to me multiple times, but only
Maybe you're driving the Honda and turn the key off, and because you can't pull a key out, so you just assume I'm getting out of the vehicle. I've got my key, or you have your key in your hand. You got your fob, and you get out with it.
And it beeps. If it does that, if you leave it on, it beeps. But if you leave, there's all sorts of. My wife's Honda. It has a switch for the headlights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's crazy. And you can leave. They don't just turn on, and you have to turn them off.
Yeah,
it is
so old
crazy.
School.
What a
technology in cars. Let's talk about safety for a minute, because if you're
the Grand Cherokee problem with checkoff, not the same as Mike's daughter's Jeep.
No.
I don't think so.
Don't believe so, unless she's not.
I'd have to revisit
that
checkoff one. You should Google that once.
I'll Google it.
Yeah. So with cars and safety, unless you live under a rock and don't listen to anything, you saw what happened with the bridge this week.
Mm-hmm.
Something that is very important for everyone to keep in mind. If you take, people were unfortunately found, the construction crew, a couple guys this morning were found in their vehicle in a Ford submerged in the water, and they didn't make it. They couldn't get out of the vehicle. Now, we don't know why. I'm not going to speculate like a lot of these news places do and ask you why, but I can tell you this. If I take a newer vehicle, if I take Shannon's truck and I drop that into the water from 50 feet, or that's probably I think that thing's like 200 feet, but
be much more
I drop it from 50 feet, more than likely it's going to hit hard enough that it will either break the battery or it could severely impact the electrical system, keeping the vehicle from being able to do anything electrically. It's off. Windows aren't going down. You might not be able to get. You think about this. You're down. You're stuck. Your doors are not openable. You pull the handle twice. That's the new federal thing for safety. Pull it once.
You have so much water pressure
pull it
pushing
again
on that vehicle.
Well, you got water pressure, but when you pull it twice, it overrides the electrical. So now, because some of the older cars, you had a problem. If they were locked, you couldn't pull up on the thing. We had a friend that had that. Shannon did.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. You can't get the doors open. So safety-wise, we strongly encourage everybody to have a device that will break a window in a car and will also cut a seatbelt. They make them. Some of them are free that they give away at events at places for safety things. Some of them, you can go to the fire department and ask them for them. They'll tell you exactly what you need. You can get them at any auto parts store. AutoZone carries them.
My mom got them for the grandkids on Amazon.
Yep.
Bought them really cheap. Gave them to them for Christmas.
And it's got a little, so like the one that you see, like you can pick up at AutoZone, you pull down the little lever and it clicks. You put it against the glass and push the button and it'll shatter the glass. And you can get out of a car that has the doors stuck for any reason.
Your vehicle
Has
is equipped with
glass.
safety glass in the front windows.
And then
you go to the back.
Yeah. Yep.
Go to the back window, go to the back side doors.
Yep. Or you have to cut. And I know it's a panic situation. It's the last thing I would think about. Well, hopefully I would think about it. But that's the thing. You need to find a way to get and practice it. Say, okay, I've been trapped by something. I've rolled over. I've rolled off the road in the snow, and now I'm pinned in between the culvert. I can't get my doors open. What am I going to do? You've got to break the glass to get out, and you got to do it fairly quickly in a lot of cases if the situation around you looks safe to do it. You got to think. I mean, that's the hard thing. I understand people have got to be doing that, but
if you look at your side, we're kind of going off on a rough subject here, but if you look at your front side windows and your vehicle is of the current 10 years, it'll usually say something in the code about safety glass. It's the same thing they put in the front windows now as they do on a windshield, which was a major technology breakthrough where you have that laminate layer of plastic in the middle of your windshield. They're doing the same thing on the driver's door glass so that
saved my life.
So you don't get thrown out in case of an accident.
Yeah.
But most back doors don't have it yet, and most back windows don't have it yet.
They're starting to a little bit. So if a car gets impacted in the side, glass doesn't come in for passengers. But like Shannon said, most of them, the back and the sides don't.
I think Dodge pickups clear back to 02 or 03 is when they switched it.
A carpet type cutter will quickly cut through that laminate. I mean, you might get a few cuts on your hands, but you're gonna cut through it very quickly. The other thing is your seatbelt. First off, I mean, wear it. it's a great thing to keep you contained when something's happening.
Well, if you had something horrible like that happen, it's going to give you a chance of not being knocked out so you can actually function yet.
If you think you're in a situation where something is imminent, that it's going to happen and you're going to have a collision in that car, and you think there's a possibility you can get that seatbelt on, if you've got a few seconds, get that seatbelt on, because that's important. But also remember, a severe impact in a car often jams a seatbelt, whether the airbag pretensioner goes off or the retractor locks, and it'll be so tight you cannot remove the seatbelt, and you need that tool to hook into the it cuts it. It just cuts the belt right off.
Cuts it very easy.
And you need it. I was upside down in a Jeep leaving our shop one night, and that seatbelt was so tight I could not remove it without the help of Jeff Stormont to the rescue. Had to physically pick me up to unhook the seatbelt because it was just tight. So think about those things. And then with fires in vehicles, good idea to carry a fire extinguisher if you can in the trunk of your car for you or other people. But if the fire, just get out. Go somewhere safe. They usually don't just explode suddenly, but they can go from mild to wild extremely fast. So pull over, get away, get people out, leave your stuff, just get away, because it's the more of the fumes from the stuff in the car than the actual flames that get people in a lot of these things. So be careful.
Looking up, there was he was in a 2015. And that was the one that rolled away. They did a recall for 2015s. Then they did a bunch of recalls up to 2017, 2014.
Was it the vehicle or the
217.
operation, or what did it say?
Well, there was different problems with it. One was they rolled away, and NHTSA was urging them to recall them.
Ooh.
And they first issued an advisory, and that's when the actor got killed. And then they had another problem with the same system stopping cars while in motion. It would activate. So there's a whole bunch, but I didn't see anything for 2019 on there in my 3 minutes of quickly looking through the.
It's one of the most annoying systems. I know it's safety, but for us in a shop, it can be really annoying because we'll pull onto a hoist. I'll have my foot on the brake. I'll be stopped. I'll open the door to look out just to make sure I'm not going to run into anything, and I'm pulling in straight. The second I open the door, clunk, it clicks, and I go, oh, come on, I got to close the door, put it in drive again. Open the door to look down again, and it's like, okay, you keep putting me in park. I can't move. But I know it's there for a reason, and it's safety. The other thing is if you have all the doors closed, but it's in neutral with the ignition on, because you can only put these new ones in neutral with the ignition on, and the vehicle running. So you do that, and then I hit the button to shut it off. Now it's in neutral. It's shut off. You go to push the vehicle. As soon as it sees a wheel speed sensor, it locks it into park.
Oh,
it's like, oh, the key's off. I'm shutting you out. So you have to push real slow, just like a clock hand. You're like really creeping to get it on the hoist.
I found that my Prius, it will, when you open the door while moving or in drive, you can move, you can back up, you can go forward, you can do all this stuff, but the screen doesn't give you any info except put the car in park. That's all it does, and it beeps and it blinks. It gives you no other information at all on the data screen or any screen. It just, when you open the door while moving, all the thing says is door open, put in park. And so I noticed that was kind of interesting because I was looking to see whatever.
Because everybody pays attention to what the dash says, right?
Right.
They can't pay attention to a check engine light. Why would they do that?
Covers the check engine light. I was thrilled. I was like, hey,
check engine light's gone.
It just says put in park. All right, that'll do it, I think, huh?
You guys want to hear about my "Don't Be Me" story that I didn't tell during the show?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a sad story. Sometimes I'm just dumb. That's what my wife tells me.
No.
Yeah.
Shannon.
And so last Saturday, the weather was changing a little bit, and I'm not going to make this too long of a story. We went down to pick up a couple pieces of furniture. Last time I got furniture, my wife reminded me that last time we got furniture from the same store with a different trailer because it got totaled out on the way home. We tipped over in the wind and lost the trailer.
Saturday, just 5 days ago.
Just this Saturday. Weather was not windy. This wasn't the issue this time. We had 2 stops to make. pick up a chair and pick up 20 gallons of paint. We're going to repaint our house this summer. Paint's on sale right now at Sherwin-Williams. You get a good deal right now. Save me a bunch of money. But anything I saved, I just spent.
Oh.
Got home with the paint in the back of my pickup.
Okay.
in the tailgate area. And so I've got a Silverado with a multi-pro tailgate. And we've always talked to people about when they first came out, we noticed right away that, hey, people are going to wreck their tailgates. They're going to drop the step. And since then, GM has came out with a sensor. Other aftermarket companies have come out with a sensor that goes around the hitch that will not let that open. If you have a hitch in there, they've got a sensor now. But so that's not it. That's not it. I wish it was that it actually. But so I'm unloading the paint. So 5-gallon pails of paint. They're heavy. I grabbed 2 of them. About the time I was carrying the second pail, I had to go to the bathroom. I needed to sit down and go to the bathroom. So I get into the garage, and so I'm carrying the paint.
I heard that, didn't you, Chris? I get into the.
Yeah. So I went into the man cave, and it's heated in there, so that's where I'm going to put the paint. I also have a bathroom in there, so I'm just doing it all at once. So I'm in there for a little bit, browse the phone a little bit while I'm in there. And so then I come out, and I'm like, okay, I got to get the chairs backed up to the house. And so without even thinking about it, just old school farm boy, I put the truck in reverse, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and I'm going to just whip the trailer around into the other driveway. My man cave and my house are right next to each other. And I'm going back out, and I hear, it's weird. The trailer usually doesn't drag when I go out backwards. And then I'm like, oh no, I didn't close the tailgate. And so at a sharp enough angle with the tailgate down, it will hit the jack on your trailer. And the tailgates are made out of aluminum. And so it doesn't take much to take and just squish it from the top like a pop can. And so now if you guys go out there and look now, I have a nice indentation on the top of my tailgate. Now it's just on the multi-pro piece. So you keep, I'm thinking, okay, I'll just buy that piece and I'll replace that, a little bit of paint work to the right of the latch. And so
You can put Under the Hood Show sticker on it. It'll cover it.
I got an idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a trend. But $768 list price for that little piece of aluminum shell. Ooh. Another $75 list price for the top plastic that got broke.
How much to put it on?
And then I can do the labor. It's a bolt together hinge system. I think as long as I got power, I can unload it. I can replace that. But I'm going to try first to straighten it. I got a couple ideas on how I can straighten it, and then I'm going to wrap it to match my hood scoop that comes from the factory in a gloss black, and it's going to give this nice little rear piece that'll be gloss black to match. I might start a trend.
Yeah.
So that's my theory. But now if I can't straighten it good enough to get it wrapped good in vinyl, then I'll have to buy a piece. And then I still might wrap it. I might not spend the money to paint it, because to get that painted in that color, I think I'd probably still spend $300 to $400, maybe $500 to have that piece painted in that color. Mm-hmm. So don't be me. And the worst part is I mean this. I am so good about closing my tailgate after I use it, because I've seen so many people come in here buying tailgates, and they're very expensive. Those multi-pro gates, if you just want to replace the whole thing, say I'm just going to get another gate, $3,000. We sell them used for those gates. And so I see these people wreck gates, and I know not to do it. And nature called. I was carrying buckets of paint. Social media got in the way, Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I came out, and I was on mission. Let's get this thing backed up. Let's get these chairs unloaded. I came in the house, and I was so mad at myself. I yelled. My wife goes, "You are so dumb." She was right.
Way to read the room.
She was right. Oh, she's always right on the money. Yeah. She knows exactly what's going on. So.
I thought you hit one of the 5-gallon buckets of paint in your story, and
that'd be bad. I've dropped plenty. I've dropped paint off the top of a ladder before and had that mess.
Are you going to try to paint the house yourself?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have time. I did a deck last year. I'm not doing a house.
Well, I just wondered. We're both looking like
no. I've got somebody going to paint the house. I just bought the paint.
That'll do it for the Under the Hood show.
Don't be me.
Don't be.
Close
Shannon.
your tailgate.
Yep. Every time.
As soon as you're done using it, close your tailgate.
There you go. Thanks, everybody. Hey, like it, subscribe, do the stuff, please.
Button.